All right, so today we're diving deep into speaking English fluently.
Sounds good.
We've got your notes and this podcast episode all about how to speak English like a pro,
Yeah.
and we're going to uncover some practical tips.
Awesome.
You'll also find out why things like shadowing and even embracing mistakes
Mm-hmm.
can really supercharge your language learning.
Yeah. I'm excited to break it all down for you.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of conventional wisdom out there,
Right,
but
right.
we're going to kind of go beyond the surface and really understand what makes a difference.
Cool. So the podcast that we're looking at today seems to really hammer on this idea of consistency.
Yeah.
They keep saying that, it's like building a muscle.
Yeah.
And the more you use it, the stronger it gets,
Yeah.
which, I mean, makes sense.
Of course.
But I think, we all struggle with actually showing up day after day
Right.
to do the work.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so it is absolutely true. And you know what's so fascinating is there's a real neurological basis for this whole muscle building analogy. Like every time you practice speaking English, you're strengthening neural pathways in your brain.
Really?
It's literally like carving a path in the woods.
Well,
The more you walk it, the clearer and easier it becomes.
yeah.
So even if you can only squeeze in 15 minutes a day, that consistent effort, it can really snowball into some serious fluency gains.
I like that.
Yeah.
So consistency is key.
Definitely.
Okay, so the podcast also talks a lot about the importance of actually having conversations.
Right.
They say, you've got to find conversation partners.
Yeah.
It's almost non-negotiable if you want to get fluent.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really that crucial?
It's really important.
Oh.
And I think the reason why they emphasize conversation so much is because, think about it, when you're chatting with someone,
Right.
you're getting real-time feedback.
Oh, yeah.
You have to think on your feet.
Yeah.
You have to adjust to what the other person is saying. Right.
Maybe even clarify things if there's a misunderstanding.
Yeah,
It pushes you out of your comfort zone
for sure.
and forces you to actually use the language dynamically.
Yeah.
And that's something you just can't get from passive activities like watching a movie.
You know that reminds me of?
What's that?
This one time I was traveling and I was trying to order food in a super crowded restaurant.
Right.
And I totally butchered the pronunciation,
Uh-huh.
mixed up my tenses,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards.
I've been there.
But you know what? The waiter understood me.
That's awesome.
And that little victory gave me such a boost.
Exactly. And that's a perfect example of
Yeah.
how even messy real life conversations can be incredible learning experiences.
I like that.
Yeah. Mistakes are actually golden opportunities to figure out what works and what needs more work.
So we've got consistency down.
Yes.
We've got conversation.
Sure.
Now, the podcast also suggests immersing yourself in English media.
Like movies, shows, even music.
Yes.
Basically surround yourself with the language as much as possible.
Yeah.
I have to admit, this one sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, it's a good one.
What's the logic behind it?
Well, it's all about exposing yourself to the natural rhythms and patterns of the language.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Even if you're not consciously focusing on every single word, your brain is still absorbing information in the background.
Really?
You're passively picking up vocabulary pronunciation, even cultural nuances.
Wow.
It's like learning by osmosis.
So I'm basically just letting it seep in.
Exactly. And the best part is it doesn't even feel like studying.
True, because you're enjoying the content.
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of fun techniques,
Yes.
the podcast introduces this concept called shadowing,
Right.
which they make sound like a secret weapon for fluency.
It kind of is.
What's the deal with shadowing?
So shadowing is pretty amazing.
Okay.
You basically listen to a native speaker
Mm-hmm.
and try to repeat what they're saying almost simultaneously.
Yeah.
It might feel a little strange at first,
I bet.
but it's kind of like a musician practicing scales.
Oh, okay.
You're training your mouth to move in the same way that a native speaker's does.
Interesting.
So you're improving your pronunciation, your intonation, even picking up on those subtle nuances that make your English sound more natural.
So I'm basically mimicking a native speaker's speech patterns.
Pretty much, yeah.
Do you have any tips on how to get started with shadowing?
Absolutely.
Oh?
So you can start with a short audio clip of something that you enjoy,
Mm.
like a scene from a movie or a podcast.
Okay.
Listen to a sentence or two, then pause and try to repeat it, paying attention to the pronunciation and intonation.
Got it.
And then you can gradually increase the length of the clips as you get more comfortable.
Cool. I can see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the podcast also spends a considerable amount of time talking about confidence
Mm-hmm.
and how it relates to fluency.
Right.
They practically insist that believing in yourself is like a massive part of becoming fluent.
Yeah, it's huge.
Is it really that important?
It's so important.
Okay. I mean, isn't it more about mastering grammar and vocabulary?
Well, confidence plays a huge role.
Okay.
And here's why it impacts not just how you speak, but also your willingness to actually practice and push yourself out of your comfort zone.
Okay.
When you believe in your ability to learn and improve, you're more likely to seek out those conversation partners, make mistakes without getting discouraged, and keep pushing forward even when it gets tough.
So confidence is like the fuel that powers the whole language learning journey.
Exactly.
That's
And
it.
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Interesting.
If you believe you can do it, you're way more likely to put in the work and actually achieve your goals.
I like that.
Yeah,
Believing in yourself is like a secret weapon.
absolutely.
Okay, last but not least, the podcast talks about the importance of getting feedback.
Right.
You can call it a gift.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I love that framing.
Yeah. Is feedback really that crucial?
Feedback is absolutely essential for language learning. Think of it as a personalized roadmap for improvement. Different types of feedback can address different areas of development.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, a tutor might help you with specific grammar points or pronunciation,
Right.
while a language partner can give you insights into more natural expressions and idioms.
So it's about actively seeking out those opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to ask for specific feedback after a practice session or a conversation.
Okay.
Something as simple as, did I pronounce that correctly?
Uh-huh.
Or is there a more natural way to express this idea? Can go a long way.
Awesome. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah, we have.
Consistency, conversation, immersion, shadowing,
That's a lot.
confidence, and feedback.
Yeah,
It's a lot to take in.
it is.
So what would you say are like the most important takeaways so far?
Well, I think it boils down to a few key principles.
Okay.
First, make English a regular part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Right.
See every interaction as an opportunity to learn. I like that.
And most importantly, believe in yourself.
Yes, you got this.
Love it. We'll be right back with even more insights and actionable tips
Awesome.
to help you on your journey to speaking English fluently.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
All right.
So far we've explored some like really effective strategies for speaking English fluently, but it's not just about like techniques, right?
Right.
The podcast we're analyzing today seems to emphasize mindset just as much as method.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They talk about embracing what they call a growth mindset,
Okay.
which basically means seeing challenges as opportunities to learn
Right.
and viewing mistakes as stepping stones rather than setbacks.
Yeah.
What do you think about that idea?
That's interesting. I think it's easy to get discouraged, when you're learning a new language, especially when you make mistakes.
Yeah.
But if you can kind of reframe those moments as valuable feedback,
Right.
it can totally change your outlook.
Exactly. It's about celebrating those small wins
Mm-hmm.
and focusing on the progress you're making, no matter how incremental it may seem.
Right.
Think of it like learning to play an instrument.
Okay.
You wouldn't expect to be a virtuoso overnight.
Right.
It takes time, patience, and a willingness to learn from those fumbled notes.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
It's about the journey, not just the destination.
for sure.
So speaking of setting realistic expectations,
Yeah.
the podcast also cautions against aiming for like a perfect native-like accent.
Right.
They say that, comprehensibility is more important than sounding exactly like a native speaker. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's such an important point.
Okay.
While it's natural to want to sound like a native speaker,
Yeah.
remember everyone has an accent.
True.
What truly matters is clarity and being understood.
Okay.
Focus on clear pronunciation and intonation,
Mm-hmm.
and don't be afraid to let your own unique accent shine through.
Embrace your individuality.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. Now, they also talk about actively seeking out opportunities to practice English.
Yeah.
They're encouraging listeners to step outside of their comfort zones
Right.
and like put themselves in situations where they have to use the language.
For sure.
Any ideas on how to do that?
So there are tons of ways to immerse yourself in real-life English.
Okay.
Think about joining a conversation group,
Okay.
volunteering in an English-speaking environment, or even just striking up a conversation with a friendly stranger.
Those are great suggestions.
Yeah.
I never thought about volunteering,
Yeah.
but that could be a fun way to practice English while also giving back to the community.
Absolutely.
The podcast also mentions visualization, which seems a bit out there.
Right.
They suggest imagining yourself speaking English fluently and confidently. Do you think that actually works?
Visualization can be a powerful tool.
Okay.
Think of it like athletes visualizing their performance before a big game.
Yeah.
It helps create a positive mental image and reinforces your belief in your ability to achieve your goals.
So it's about mentally preparing yourself for success.
Exactly.
Interesting. I'm willing to try anything that helps boost confidence.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, the podcast also touches on the role of technology in language learning, highlighting things like language learning apps, online dictionaries, even social media.
Right.
What are your thoughts on using tech to learn English?
Well, technology has definitely revolutionized language learning.
Okay.
There are so many apps out there that can help with vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, even provide opportunities for conversation practice.
Right.
It's like having a personal language tutor in your pocket.
I can definitely see how those tools can be helpful.
Yeah.
I actually use a flashcard app to learn new vocabulary.
Oh, cool.
And it's been pretty effective.
Awesome.
The podcast also talks about the importance of understanding the culture behind the language.
Yes.
Saying it's not just about memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Well, language and culture are so deeply intertwined.
Right.
Learning about the cultural context can enhance your understanding of the language and help you communicate more effectively.
Right.
For example, understanding humor, idioms, and slang can really help you connect with native speakers on a deeper level.
So it's about going beyond the textbook and experiencing the language in its natural habitat.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, the podcast also suggests setting aside dedicated time for English learning.
Right.
Do you think that's necessary?
Well, consistency is crucial for language learning.
Okay.
Even if it's just 30 minutes a day, making English a regular part of your schedule can make a huge difference.
It's like scheduling a meeting with your fluency goals.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Now, one last thing they talk about is staying motivated. They acknowledge that motivation can ebb and flow.
Right.
And suggest finding ways to keep yourself engaged and excited about learning English.
For sure.
Any tips on staying motivated?
It's definitely a challenge. Try setting realistic goals,
Okay.
tracking your progress and celebrating your achievements along the way. And don't forget to make learning fun.
True.
Watch movies, listen to music, read books,
Right.
or connect with other language learners.
That's great advice.
Yeah,
It's about finding what sparks your interest and makes you want to keep learning.
exactly.
Okay, we'll be right back with more insights on your journey to English fluency.
Awesome.
Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
So we've been uncovering some fantastic strategies for speaking English fluently, and I'm already feeling more confident just thinking about all these techniques.
That's great.
But there's one point the podcast keeps coming back to
Okay,
that I
go.
think we need to explore further.
Right.
They seem to suggest that becoming a fluent speaker
Yeah.
isn't just about speaking.
Okay.
It's just as much about listening.
That's a really important point.
Right.
The podcast really emphasizes the interconnectedness of speaking and listening. They argue that you can't truly master one without the other.
Yeah.
It's like a dance.
Right.
You need to be able to both lead and follow
Yeah.
to move gracefully across the floor.
So it's not just about hearing the words.
Right.
But actively listening and paying attention to the nuances.
Exactly.
Okay.
Active listening helps you pick up on those subtle cues in pronunciation, intonation, even cultural context. The more you actively listen to how native speakers use the language, the better you'll become at incorporating those elements into your own speech.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
The podcast also recommends actively seeking out opportunities to listen to a variety of English accents and dialects.
Right?
Why is that so important?
Good question.
Isn't it enough to just understand one standard accent?
Well, exposure to different accents broadens your understanding of the language as a whole.
Okay.
It helps you develop a more flexible ear and avoid getting stuck in a bubble where you only understand one specific type of English.
Right.
The world is full of diverse accents, and being able to understand and communicate with people from different backgrounds is a huge asset.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I know I've struggled to understand certain accents before,
Oh, yeah, me too.
so I can definitely see the value in expanding my listening repertoire.
For sure.
The podcast also encourages listeners not to be shy about asking for clarification when they don't understand something. They emphasize that it's okay to ask questions
Yeah.
and be an active participant in the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Asking for clarification is not a sign of weakness.
Right.
It shows that you're engaged and eager to learn.
Yeah.
Native speakers are generally happy to help and they appreciate the effort you're making.
So it's better to ask a question than to pretend you understand
Right.
and miss out on important information.
Exactly.
That's reassuring to know.
Good.
Um, Now, the podcast also talks about using mistakes as learning opportunities.
Yeah, it's a good one.
They urge listeners to view mistakes not as failures,
Right.
but as stepping stones to fluency.
It's all about shifting your perspective.
Okay.
Mistakes are inevitable when you're learning a new language.
Yeah, for sure.
What matters is how you respond to them.
Right.
Instead of getting discouraged or embarrassed,
Hmm.
try to analyze your mistakes, figure out why you made them, and use that knowledge to improve.
So it's like turning those slip-ups into valuable data points
Exactly.
that can help you refine your approach.
That's a great way to put it.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
The podcast also reminds listeners to be patient and persistent.
Right.
They stress that fluency is a journey, not a destination, and that it takes time and effort to reach your goals.
That's so true.
Okay.
There will be ups and downs along the way,
Right.
but the key is to keep practicing, keep learning, and never give up on your dream of speaking English fluently.
I love that.
Remember, every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goal.
I think that's a great note to end on.
I agree.
Learning a new language can feel overwhelming at times.
For sure.
But it's important to remember that it's a journey worth taking.
Absolutely.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll be having this conversation in fluent English.
Yeah, I hope so.
We hope this deep dive has provided you with valuable insights and actionable strategies to help you on your journey to English fluency.
That's what we're here for.
Remember to embrace the process, celebrate your progress, and most importantly, have fun along the way.
Sounds good.
Until next time.